if you want to go ahead and get some of these particular trainings, we do have our RMS Support Center YouTube channel available where you can go through and get all of the video learning that you have at your fingertips there. In order to get to that, you can navigate over to our website, rmsusa.army.mil, and you can go ahead and select the RMS help videos. That'll take you there. We also have the slides available, so you can download the slides for the Train the Trainer. That is available on our website, so you guys can go ahead and jump on that and grab those slides as well. All right, the RMS staff will also be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, go ahead and type it into the chat, and one of our knowledgeable team members will be able to respond back to you. At the end of each section, we will also give you an opportunity to ask questions verbally, so we'll take you off of mute, and you can ask your questions so that we can all benefit from learning. You will basically need to unmute yourself. I'll unmute everyone, and then you can unmute yourself to basically ask a question. In about 5 business days, the recording will be posted, so you guys will be able to take a look at that. In addition, if my presentation is too fast, please let me know in the chat. I'm trying to make sure that I slow down so that I can enunciate and then basically get the points across without rushing. If you have any questions outside of the scope of this particular training, we will note them and answer them once the core content of the training has been reached. If you have any questions that we can't answer that needs support, we'll direct you to our support team, and then we can give you a little bit better support answer through our team. This training does not include guidance on business processes, policies, or regulations that govern your particular district's way of doing business. We know that some of you have additional paperwork and additional policies and things that are in place for your district's checks. This will not cover those. We will try to keep things general so that you can utilize RMS to fit your district's needs. The sections that we will be covering today range from custom reports and also closeout, as well as managing the searches and filtering within RMS. So we'll be taking a look at several of those. First on the list is creating custom reports and queries. So obviously, once your users have entered data into RMS, it is good. It's going to be no good unless they can pull that data out again and use it in a meaningful way. So reporting allows you to be able to discover, interpret, and communicate that data in a meaningful way by examining any patterns found in the entered data. So the custom reporting tool lets you create reports using the data that suits your particular needs or your users' particular needs. Sometimes the users might approach you as a district administrator to say, hey, can you pull this particular data out? I want to see if it looks like XYZ, or if it's showing me some type of thing that I need to interpret. And with the Telerik custom reporting tool, you can configure all the settings that you need, including which data source to use, which fields and filters to include, when and how often to run the report, and then delivery, format, and destination of that report. So you can access the custom reports from the district library. You go ahead and click on the district library, and it'll take you to the district library menu. It'll bring up the additional menus that you can choose from. You'll choose the custom reports menu option, and from there, it will pull up the custom reports grid, and you can view the reports on the data grid by the report title, author, report type, which menu the report will be on, and so forth. We also have a query designer, because sometimes you may want to generate custom queries for a particular district report in order to aggregate data that's combining data from multiple sources and then processing the data for new insights and presenting aggregate data in a summary view. So the query definitions are for district level reports, and you can use them in your reports as well. You can do that through the query definitions section. That's on the same menu option. You'll just go all the way down to query definitions on the bottom. Once you click on that, that will take you to the query definitions data grid, and it'll allow you to create a custom aggregate query at this level by clicking add. However, even though the query is created at the district level, you can still add constraints so that the data can be filtered at the contract level as well. However, just keep in mind that all of the reports or all of the queries that you enter here will be at the top level, which is district, but you can filter them down to be at a contract level as well. If creating reports from scratch is not your thing, you can also enjoy the RMS Asset Store, where you can find resources such as reports, queries, templates, and contract groups from other districts as well. To get to the RMS Asset Store, you'll navigate to the System Library menu option and then click on the RMS Asset Store. Once selected, the Asset Store will basically show a data grid, and it will list the RMS USA's-wide repository, which all the users have updated their particular information in. The blue tiles at the top provide a total number of reports that are available in each reporting group. So if you want to go ahead and filter by those particular tiles, you can do that as well, in addition to the group filtering that we have within the report. All right, and now we're getting to our demo. So this demo is going to be a pretty long demo. We are pretty much trying to get you to the point of, if you have not used the actual tool before, this is kind of just going to break the ice on that for you. It's not going to be an exhaustive demo. If you have used the tool, this might be a good refresher, but if you're brand new to telework reporting, hopefully this will give you an insight and introduction to how the tool is used. So as I mentioned before, you'll go into District Library, and then you'll click on the Custom Reports tool. And the Custom Reports tool will basically show all of your reports that are created. And we'll be clicking on the Add button to generate our new tool, our new custom report. So when the custom report pulls up, you'll notice all of the information at the top. The first is the report title. You can go ahead and enter your title here. I'm going to go ahead and enter my title for, all right, I'm going to enter my title for this particular report. It'll be a Train the Trainer Q3 report number 1. The author is going to be myself, Gerald McCoy. The report type is basically where the report is going to be distributed in the RMS menus. So basically, if you choose contract, it's going to show up in the contract reporting menu. If you choose district, it's going to show up in the summary reports menu. And we'll show that a little bit later. But for this one, we're going to choose contract. I'm going to start off with a contract level report. This report type will also affect the data source, the collection selection down here. We'll get to that in just a bit, though. The reporting menu will allow you to choose where you want this report to be housed. So essentially, you can have it sitting in the administration group, or the finances, or QA/QC, whichever option you choose. That's where this report will be. You can also toss in a description here. For the report. So obviously, if you're putting it in, it'll be a little bit more meaningful. We're going to skip this section right now, mainly because we're going to have another training on this a little bit later. Not today, but it's going to be a separate training. And then we have our required collections. And that's where we're actually going to choose our particular collection. So as mentioned before, when we click on this right now, it's going to show us all the contract collections that are available to us. And we'll show our data grids here. And there's 2 steps to the process. First, we'll define our particular data source, which we'll be able to use in our report. And then when we get into our report designer, we'll consume that data source and then design our report connecting to the fields that are available to us from within the report. I'll go back up real quick and go to the report type, and I'll switch it to district. And then I'll go ahead and click on the add collection. And as you can see, the collections now have changed to queries because the district level reports require that you use queries. We have query system levels. These are the queries that internally RMS Center creates. And then we have the query Ds, which are the district levels. These are what district administrators or people who have permissions to use the custom reporting area can create as well. All right, so for us, we're going to jump back out and we're going to choose our contract level report. From there, I'm going to go ahead and choose RFI. And we have a filter up here that allows us to choose narrow it down to our particular source selection that we want. I just want to choose the RFI collection. I'm going to choose OK and grab that collection. The next step down here is if you're going to try to run this particular report, it's going to ask you, hey, you're running a contract report. You need to have a contract ID. So if I try to launch this particular report, it's going to tell me no contract ID is selected. A contract ID must be selected in order to run a contract level report. That's because you want to have some data elements on your particular report so that you can essentially design your report as you are utilizing it in the designer. So in this case, we're going to click on it and we're going to choose the contract that we want. I'm going to use my test contract. Okay, I've got my test contract now. The RMS custom collection field is a new element that was added. So essentially, this gives you the ability to select one of the custom collections. And the only custom collection in here at the moment is our contract status funded and unfunded changes. So we're not going to do anything with that. So we're just going to leave that for right now. The next up at the top is going to be a record GUID. So this is going to be the overall file name of your particular report that it's going to be designated as. So this is going to be a unique identifier which identifies your report. The next checkbox is under construction. So if your report is under construction, you're going to check on this particular box. That way it'll communicate to the users who see your reports on the menu that it is under construction. It's not available yet. You can also choose to show your report in government mode or show your report in contractor mode if you want the contractor to see that particular report and consume that particular report as well. From there, we come down to the bottom where we see our buttons. So before I talk about the first button, which is Launch Telerik Report Designer, I'm going to stop and discuss the other two buttons, the Copy Report Template from an RMS Center report. So if you want to start off from an already existing report, you can go ahead and choose this option. It'll allow you to select an already existing report so that you can copy it into your particular report here and then utilize those particular options. There are a few things that it will leave out, so you'll have to fill in some of the gaps for the report, but overall it'll give you the template that you need, and then you still have to fill in all of the data elements. The next one is copying a report template from an end user report. So many of the end users within RMS create custom reports, and if they have a report that's similar to the one that you're trying to create and you're just trying to incorporate it into your district, but you have some additional fields that you may want to add, you can use their reports as a starting point. Once you copy their report, then you can build upon their report. Once you've decided on your particular report and you've selected your contract ID and all the other things have aligned, you can then go ahead and click on Launch Telerik Report Designer. All right, once you launch a Telerik Report Designer, it'll ask you if you want to go ahead and either save or overwrite a file. If you've already been using the Telerik Report Designer before and you have a file existing, it'll ask you regarding that. Mine is opening on another window. I'm going to drag it up in just a moment as soon as it's completed its load. All right, so I'm going to bring it up here and let's go ahead and maximize it. All right, and let's go ahead and discuss the overall elements of this designer. I'm going to go ahead and close this because I don't need that one. All right, that was a report I was working on, so I just closed it, didn't need it. So this is the main report here that you're in, and it basically shows you the file name and then where that particular report is saved to. So you can choose to right click and you can show in folder if you want to go to that location. And if you want to create a backup of your reports, you can do it that way as well. Go there and then copy and paste that particular report. All right, so let's go ahead and start off at the upper left and work our way over. So we start off with the preview. Once we get our report template that comes in here, we can click on preview and it will show a preview of our report. Currently, we don't have anything connected yet. We have our data sources, but we haven't hooked it up to the report as yet. But in the preview, we have a lot of other options. We have zoom, refresh, print, page setup, print preview, export, find, So all those elements are available to us there. If we want to go back to the designer, we can then click back on design, and that'll take us back to the designer. All right, once we're back on the designer, let's go ahead and continue going. We have our clipboard section where we can cut, copy, and paste here as well. And then we also have our formatting section where we can create and issue formats for our particular report. So if we want to go ahead and, let's say, take our header there and left justify, we can do that, or right justify, we can do that. So that's our format section, which also includes our lines, our background colors, and our font colors, as well as our fonts and our font size. We also have our layout section, so we can go through and choose many different elements. We can center our selected objects horizontally or vertically. We can also go through and bring each one of the elements to the front or send to the back. Each one of those particular elements we can center, or we can adjust their particular layout with these particular tools here. We also have the border elements as well. So if we want to create and put a border around our particular fields, we can do that by issuing the border, using the border style right here. And then we can tell it if we want full border, top, bottom, left, or right border as well. And then we also have our line that we can select for the style: a solid line, dotted, dash, double dash, grooved. Those elements are available. And then we have the size of the line. We can tell if we want a 1.0, 1.5, our particular size, and then the color of the line as well. We can choose the color there. Continuing to move over to the right, we will hit our Data Explorer element, and our Data Explorer element actually houses our data sources. So data source is just a another way to say your source data that's coming from RMS. So we created our source data within RMS, the data that's going to be consumed within our report. You'll notice we have two elements here. We only created RFI, but we do have a default data source, which is our RMS contract, which includes a lot of our RMS contract data fields as well. So we can go through and select any one of those data fields and include them in our report. We also have down at the bottom here our properties section, and our properties section will show us the drill down of each one of these particular properties. So if we're on the header property, it'll show us the value, which is our header property over here. And then if we switch to the header 2, it'll show us header 2, along with all of the different categories that we can change within the actual object that we're looking at. These objects are referred to as text boxes, so we can see those elements right there as well. From there, we will jump back over to our design space, and our design space has our actual design template, which is our default template. It has obviously the castle, the report title elements, our parameters that we've passed in. These are our default parameters, and then each one of our objects, which houses an element for our report. But before we talk about that, we'll jump back up to the top, and then we'll move over one tab to our insert column. So our insert column allows us to insert different elements onto our report. So if we click on our report, these now become enabled. We can now insert elements onto our report, such as tables, crosstabs, charts, bars, column, area. We can insert maps, we can insert subreports, and then we can also insert report items as well. So text boxes, picture boxes, barcodes, different things like that. The data elements, if we have our own custom data, we can do that. For the most part, if you're using RMS, you'll be creating your data source from within RMS, and then RMS will send your data source already prepackaged to the report. Most of the people will not be using this particular section. They'll create their particular data sources within RMS. And then we have our overall view. So these are our overall view. We can view the property browser. We have our report explorers, our data explorer, and our group explorer. So these are these elements over here. So we can see each one: data explorer, properties. So our group explorer, if something disappears on you, you can always go to view and then turn it back on again, or you can turn it off if you don't want to see it. And that covers all the tabs. We're going to jump back over to home. And one thing we want to do, starting off our report, is we're just going to go ahead and change this title. In order to change the title, we can go ahead and double click on the actual title on the object, and then we can call it our RFI report. Another way to change the report is by right-clicking. We can also go to expression. That'll bring open our expression editor, and then we can also type in our expression or our title into the edit box for the expression. Let's go ahead and add a particular field over here as well. We can do that a couple ways. We can either choose to go down and find a field that we want to add. And I think what I will do is I will choose one of our custom fields like contract ID, just so we can see the contract ID. So we can either start typing and it'll filter down if you know the name, or it is in alphabetical order, so you can just scroll down until you actually see it. And this is the field we want, contract ID. We can click and drag it over, and then it'll drag over our fields. The exclamation points here are just warnings. They're telling us that it's overlaying onto another field. If we were to double click on this, it will bring us into the field, not giving us an overall view. But if we right click and choose expression, we can see that essentially the field itself is just an equal sign, and then the field's offset keyword, and then our actual RMS contract data source, and then our field, each separated by a dot. So in essence, we can actually just copy that or cut it depending on what we want to do. Delete that. And then we can basically go to our expression editor there, paste it in, and then we'll have the same value. So we can either drag over the data, or we can, if we already know the overall command, we can paste or type the command in there. And if we want to start to see our report come into view, we can go ahead and hit a report, and then we can already see our contract ID, which is 1660, which was the one I chose. And I think what I'll also do is I'll put in the contract delivery in there as well, just so we're able to see the contract delivery information for that particular field. And then we have our contract delivery in there. So our report's coming together, but right now we don't have any data showing up in here for our header field information. We do have that templatized data, but not really any overall data that we can see. So the way we're going to fix that is we need to get in here and choose the table. If we click on the crosshair, whenever we mouse over these little elements here, our crosshair will turn into basically a large crosshair, and we can select that. That's our detail area. This one's our footer area. The mouse over will give you the context sensitive information. And then the top part is our header section area. And clicking out in the big gray area will give us our page section area as well. But we want to choose our table area. So what we'll do is we'll click on any one of these fields within our detail section, and then we'll select this little box right up here. That will be our table area, our table section. When we click on that, the table will view. The table will pop into view over under our properties section. And in order for us to bind our data element, we're going to have to go to bindings, and under bindings, we'll choose the button. We'll click new, create a new binding. Under property path, we're going to click the down arrow, and then we're going to go ahead and find data source. We're going to bind our new data source, and then we're going to choose the expression that we want, and that expression is going to be fields.rfiktr. That's our field that we passed in for the data source. And then we'll go ahead and click OK. So now we bound our particular field here, but one of the things that comes up a lot is, okay, when we look over here, we don't see any fields here. We do see fields underneath our RMS contract. That is one of the downfalls of utilizing Telerik. They only give you one spot for your particular fields. There is a workaround for that. We won't be going into it on this particular report, but for the most part, you'll just need to know what your fields are. And in this case, we already knew what our fields were. We're going to use 3 of those fields, which are RFI number, date submitted, and our RFI subject. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here real quick. I'm going to choose close. Yes. I'm going to save it. And then we're going to go back. All right, going to go into 1660. All right, I'm going to go into request for information. So the data that I've chosen to use was going to be the date requested, the RFI number, and the RFI subject. But right now, when you're looking at it, you don't really know what the actual data elements are. RMS gives you the ability to be able to see these data elements by doing what's called a control right click. So if you mouse over on the screen, hold down your control key, and then right click, it will show you the data source that you want. It'll also show you the actual field names, and it will show you any of the field values. In this case, we have an _X, which you cannot use that. You can use the overall straight defined fields without the _X's. So those are the fields that we're going to utilize. So in essence, when you go into a field, if you want to use a particular field, you can go ahead and choose to use that control right click. We also have our data dictionary, whereas you can go to the report section and then view the data dictionary. It'll give you a full list, but we find that most people will just use the control right click because it's a little bit easier to utilize. Once you're all done, there's a little button up here that says close field information overlay, and you can click on that and it'll close the field information overlay. Now, if you want that for any of the other areas as well, like you wanted information here, same thing, you just do control right click and it'll present to you and show you all the data information from this screen as well that you can utilize in your particular report. So we can go ahead and close that. And so that control right click is a handy feature that you can utilize to make sure that you're getting the right fields. Going back to our RFI, and I do my control right click, I'm going to be using date_submitted. Now I can just copy this and then paste it in a notepad, but I already know what they are, so I'm not going to do that. And then I'm going to use RFI number and I'm going to use RFI subject. So those are the three fields that I'm going to use. So that being said, let's just go ahead and get back out of here, and we're going to jump back into our report once more. I'm going to go back to custom reports. And then our report was 83. And then from here, we'll have to choose our ID again. And then we can launch our report. Slide this back up here. Now we know our fields that we're actually going to utilize from RFI KTR. Those were the RFI subject, date_submitted, and RFI number. So we're going to go ahead and start entering those fields here. We've already bound our data element to our RFI KTR table that we've already added, that data source. So now we can utilize those fields. So first thing, I'm going to go ahead and right click and I'm going to choose expression. And then in here, we can either type it in. This one I'm going to use is date submitted. And then we're going to go ahead and choose OK. So then we can go ahead and test it to make sure that it's working. And yep, it's working. So now we've got all of our dates showing. Format's not quite right. We're going to go ahead and change the format. We're going to right click on the field. We're going to go to format, and then we can go ahead and change it to date. I'm just going to choose our default date up at the top. Going to choose OK, and then let's go ahead and preview the report again. And now it's showing in a good date format for us. Switch back over to design. And we'll also change the header. And we're going to have that read our date submitted field. And then we can go ahead and preview it again. And once we preview it, we can see that all the elements are running through. Now, one thing you'll want to note is that when you're running it, the default is for it to show all on one page straight down, like a continuous feed. But for us, we don't want to do that. We want to see it as a regular printable page. So we're going to choose print view. And now we have our print view showing. However, now that we switched over to print view, we see another problem, and that is our header is not printing over on each one of the pages. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now. So we're going to go back over to design view. And then that requires us to go back to the table. And for selecting the table, we'll click on one of the fields. And then you'll notice that it creates this little border, this little outline around. It's like a little header at the top, but it has a little square over here just above our detail section. We're going to click on that, and that's what will bring up our table for us. We're going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit to our layout view. And our layout view, this is the layout option we want to choose. Column headers print on every page. The default is false. We want to change that to true. All right, so now we've changed it to true. We can go ahead and jump back over to our preview section. And now our headers are showing up on the pages. All right, so we're good to go there. We're going to switch back over to design. And once we switch back over to design, let's go ahead and change a couple of these formatting settings. So these are going to be left justified. So we might as well make our headers justified. We're going to select our first header and drag over, which will select all three. And we're just going to make it left justified. And then we can preview it. And then we can see they're all left justified now. All right, then let's go ahead and change our headers here. It's going to be RFI no. And then this one's going to be subject. And then we're also going to update the fields as well. So this one's going to be RFI no. Expression. And like that. Now, one thing I want to point out is that these elements are case sensitive. So if we preview this, we can see our data is printing through. But if we jump back over and let's say we went back to the expression and we typed in RFI no, and then we previewed it, we'll see that we get no data. Now there is a reason for this, and that's mainly because it's a case sensitive element. But we do need to be aware of that, because when we're working with district queries, those elements are always capitalized. So we have to make sure to use the capital field when we're using with those. And when we're working with contract queries, those elements are always lowercase. So the gotcha here is that if your users are creating custom reports and they're creating a contract report, they'll be using the lowercase option for their field selections. And if they're using a district query, they'll be using the uppercase option to lowercase. And then while I'm at it, I will go ahead and add our last element, which is going to be our RFI subject. All right, and then let's go ahead and preview. All right, and we've got our data coming in. I think what we'll do is we'll start to shore these things up a little bit. Bring our elements over, and we'll bring this element over. And then we'll give our subject a bit more room. We'll go ahead and preview that. And now we're getting to see that we've got a little report going. Now, one of the other elements that you have available to you when you're creating these reports is you also have what's called conditional formatting. We have expressions formatting and conditional formatting. So let's say we wanted to highlight some text within our RFI subject column that basically says, hey, if we run into this text, do this. So let's go ahead and create a new rule, create a new element. The expression we're going to add is we're going to say fields.rfi underscore subject. And in this case, it's going to be like, and then the wildcard %. And we're going to say sign. All right, and then we're going to change the style. We're going to say whenever we come across that, let's go ahead and change the background color to be something like, no, let's not do seashell. Let's make it brighter. Tomato, yeah, tomato's good. We'll make it a tomato color. Click OK, click OK, and let's go ahead and run our report. And whenever you see sign in your particular subject column, it'll highlight that. And you can do that for pretty much anything. If you have a particular thing that you're trying to call out to see if a user is using XYZ text in their particular RFI subject, or in any column that's using a string value, you can go ahead and do that. Let's jump back. One of the other things that we want to bring up is we also have, under our expressions, we also have these little elements here, which will allow us to create constants. We also have functions available to us. We'll take a look at that. We have global objects that are available. We have operators that we can use, arithmetic operators, comparison or logical operators as well. And then we have our reporting constants that we can use also. Some of these we actually send in, and some of them are default. So in this case, what we'll try to do is we'll use one of the functions within here. And I think what we'll do is we'll use the substring function. And I think what I'll do is I'll call the first 5. So I'll only select the first five text characters within the RFI subject. So we have conversion, we have data, date and time, logical, whatever, math. We're actually going to be using a text function, but I just want to go through and show you each one of these. In our text function, we're going to use the substring function, which is right here. And it explains to you how to use it. It gives you like a little example at the bottom as well. So in our case, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose OK. And then let's go ahead and preview it. Now it only will print out the first 5 characters of that particular field. All right, now you'll notice what happened is I actually selected both of these, so my information went to both. So I'm just going to go back and choose this one and change that back to subject. So sometimes if users are going in and they're creating reports, selecting all is not about holding down. So you don't hold down the control key to select, which is kind of a gotcha. You can just click and then drag. So if you click and then arbitrarily drag up, you might be selecting the whole thing. So you just want to make sure that what you are selecting is bolded. And if you see any other areas that's bolded around, you just want to make note of that so that you're not selecting everything, because this is not a like hold down shift and then select all. It's not the way it works. So that's one of the gotchas here. Sometimes the user will do something and it'll apply to multiple fields and they'll wonder what just happened, so I just want to make sure to call your attention to that. All right, that being said, we have each one of our elements defined. We can go through, print out our report, and now we've got our report showing our date submitted, our RFI number, and then our subject as well. So each one of those elements is showing there. And then we actually have our default, which is our page number, which shows at the bottom down here as well. So those elements are defaulted when you create your particular report. If you want to change that, you can do that through the constants menu as well, and through the expressions menu. Let's see, those are the report parameters, and I believe, yeah, the global objects. So the global objects have page number, page count, rendering format, those elements that you can choose from. All right, so that's basically a generic view overall of this reporting element. You'll also notice if we click on this big gray area here, we get our page settings, which we can change over here. Our page settings can be letter, or we can change it to whichever one of these sizes that we want. We can also change the orientation from portrait to landscape, change the margins if we need to. And then we can change the unit of measure. Right now it's centimeters. We can change it to inches if we want to, or to pixels. So those are other elements that come into play when you're utilizing this as well. That's the contract level report. Let's go ahead and exit out of this. And when you exit out of your report, you're going to be presented with a screen that asks you if you want to save your report. Design changes to the RMS database. Just go ahead and say yes if you want to save that, or if you made horrible mistakes and you don't want to save it because you don't want people to see what you did, go ahead and choose no, and then it won't save it. It'll basically have the one previous to the one you opened, so when you open it again, it'll basically revert back. All right, we're going to choose yes, and so that gives us our elements there. All right, this report should be under contract and administration, and it's under government mode. So we're going to jump back in. We're going to go to 1660, and then we're going to go to contract reports. All right, under administration, and then under here, we should be able to see our report listed. And right there, our report is listed under construction. The report author is listed as well. Tells you who developed it, RMS end user, and then our title of our report. You obviously can get more creative as to what your report is. And then when we double click to run our particular report, our particular report will run, and then it will show us our data elements that we've gone through and created. All right, so the other custom report that we would normally utilize and consume would also be district level reports as well. The first step to define a district level report will be to define some queries, and essentially we'll be doing the same thing. What we'll end up doing is we'll write our particular query from scratch. So in order to get the fields and information that we need, we'll do the same thing. We'll start off within our contract that we're in. Since it's going to be a summary report, we would need some type of data anyway. So we usually will start off with a contract level and then get our data elements and then make it into a more summary type report. But we'll start off from here like we did before. We'll do a control right click. It'll list all of our data elements that we want, the RFI table that we want, RFI KTR table that we want, and then our fields that we're wanting to utilize. And then we'll go in and we'll type in our SQL, our structured query language script. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go to district library. We're going to go to query definitions. And under query definitions, we're going to go ahead and create our actual query. We're going to choose add. And our query is going to be train the trainer, Q3, 01, query name. And then we'll make our query title, same exact thing. Choose OK. And now it'll bring us to our actual query definition designer. So we can go through and create our query from here. So our query name is unchangeable. We can't change it anymore, so it's non-editable because that's now become our identifier. We don't want that to change. Our title can change, of course, and then our description. So we can go ahead and add our test. And then this is where we would actually create our query. And then down here, we will have our parameters. So for our parameters, we actually utilize what's called parameterized queries. And that is essentially allows us to create and prevent SQL injection attacks. That's a database security feature, which is pretty much adopted within the development environment. So we just want to make sure to follow those type of best practices. So that's where our parameters come in. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and pen our SQL, and I've already got one prepared. So all right, our SQL is pretty much a simple one. So we're going to select the same fields we did before. We're going to select our date submitted, our RFI number, and our RFI KTR field from KTR. All we did for the R was we created an alias. So we selected RFI KTR and we called it R, and then we just prefaced the fields that we want with the R period so that it utilizes it as an alias. That way, when we're doing our other additional statements, which is our left outer joins or our where clauses, we can utilize those aliases so that they won't collide with each other. We'll know exactly which ones we're talking about. And then at the end, I have in row num is less than or equal to 150. This just will constrict our row count to 150 rows so that it doesn't go over that. We don't want all of the RFIs within the entire district. So this is just allowing us to not select all that. And then right here, we have our constraint, which is our office. So, and we have our office ID, and that is functioning as our parameterized query. So we're going to create that parameter right now. So the ID element is what we're created, office ID, and then we're going to call that office ID. The type of our parameter is going to be a string, and then we're going to go ahead and enter our value for that as well, which will be the office ID that we're choosing. So we can go ahead and click execute query. And once we choose execute query, it's going to actually create our overall query parameter, give us our launch endpoint, and then we can click on execute the query, and it will run the query for us and then produce our data. So we can see our date submitted, RFI no, and our RFI underscore subject. Now, keep in mind, when you run these within the system, you notice that these are uppercase. So these are all uppercase here. So we have to make sure that we use uppercase when we refer to them within our Telerik. Now, there's another way to do this as well. You'll notice that I used what's called our office ID, but some of you might not know what your office ID is, and that's okay. We'll go ahead and do one other alternative method. And that will be to utilize the office name. So I'm going to go ahead and utilize the office name instead. And then now we just have to change our values around. That's going to be our office name. Office name. And then from there, we can go ahead and bring in our actual value for the office name. And the office name that I'm choosing is going to be the Baltimore test area office. We can go ahead and select execute on that query. And if we want to change the actual records on the fly by our filter setting that we have up here, we can do that. We can type in a different office name if we wanted to. We're going to click execute, and then it'll run and give us our queries as well based on the office name. All right, so we'll leave it with that. We'll use the office name instead. And now that we've created our query, we can now consume this query inside of our Telerik report. So we're just going to have to remember our query identifier, which is up here, TTTQ3_01. And then we can go ahead and click back and click back again. And now we can go into our custom reports. And within our custom reports, we can add a new custom report. All right, and this is going to be 02. We're going to call this district, listed under administrator. Everything is pretty much still the same, except now that we chose district, we're only going to see our query values in here. In this case, we'll choose our TTT reports, and this is the one we want right here, which is our TTTQ301. I'm going to choose that. Okay. And now we've got our report value in there. Now, one thing to note is that when you're running an actual district level query, you don't have to assign a contract ID to it, mainly because you're running it at a district level. We expect you to define the queries at the district level. So you will have all of your entry points that you need, your proper filters set within your query. So you should be able to get all the data elements already. So when you launch this, it'll actually go back and run that query before the report tool launches. So let's go ahead and launch this Telerik report designer. And right here, it brings up our query and it'll run and generate the data. And that's the data it's going to push into our report. So we're going to go ahead and execute this. It'll execute. Yes, go ahead and overwrite my item. All right, it opened up on my other screen. I'll pull it up as soon as it completes. Almost done. Okay, completed. And I'm pulling it up. Okay, so now we're back and everything is still the same, except now we want to jump back over to our Data Explorer. And now we have some new elements within our Data Explorer. Our Data Explorer now has two new elements. One is our RMS District Essentials. So if you're running it at a district level, we have some district essentials up here for you, which are basically fields that are pertinent to the district level of a report. And then we also have the custom report or custom query that we created, which was pushed in. And as you note, it didn't change in the sense that it's still not listing our fields for us. We have to know what fields that we're bringing in. So we're going to go ahead and call those fields a little bit later. All right, so one element that we want to utilize is our essentials. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the district name so we can drag that in. I can go ahead and delete this and essentially just drag this up here. All right, and the same thing applies. We can preview the report. And now we're running T2 Baltimore District. That's our test. Switch it over to print preview. And so as you continue to do this more and more, things become kind of second nature. So we're going to do our district RFI report. And then let's go ahead and set those over there. We're going to bind our new data source to our table once again. So nothing's changed. We're still doing the same thing. The only thing we did differently was creating that query, custom query element. I'm going to go to data source, select expression, click the drop down, and then we're going to choose our data source we brought in. Data source is now in. We're going to choose OK. Now we've got our data source. All right, now this is one of the things that we want to go ahead and show just to make sure that it's understood. Now, before, when we initially brought this over, these elements were lowercase the first time that we inserted the data. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those back once more. And we're going to go ahead and choose expression. All right, so when we first used this, we used the date underscore submitted, and it was lowercase. But remember, I told you the lowercase option is primarily for contract reports, because the contract reports sends it over the lowercase value. And so if we run this particular report, we'll notice we get no data that's showing up here. So if we're running a district level report, we just have to remember to change that element, expression, change this element from a lowercase to a capital, uppercase. And then we run our query again, and now our data shows up. So we've got our data now. So that's one of the gotchas that I've seen so far, is that when the user are creating custom queries, some of them are utilizing the lowercase values when they're creating custom queries. It's only a mistake you make one or two times before you understand how it works. So let's go ahead and right click this, choose format, and let's go ahead and format that. Same thing with this. Let's go ahead and choose expression. Oh, forgot I kept my caps lock on. All right. And preview that. Yep, data's showing up, so we're good. And then same thing with this. RFI subject. And now all of our data is there. So now we're good to go. And so now we can go through and do our same thing that we're doing before. If we wanted to go ahead and right click, choose our conditional formatting, create our rule again. Same thing here. RFI subject. Our operator is going to be like, and then we'll choose percent sign percent. The percent is basically just saying anywhere in this text that you see sign, if that is found, then do something. So in our case, we're going to make the background color. Let's see. Tomato again. Let's see. Let's make it. Okay. All right, tomato. And then when we run our report, now we can see our signage flowing once more. We can see our tomato color in the background. I didn't really change the header. I think you kind of get the point there. So one other thing that I want to show that's a gotcha is the style. So let's say that you applied a style, and we went here and created a box around our RFI report, our RFI subject, and now the box is situated. But now we don't want that box anymore. We try to come up here and we are like, oh, there's no way to remove that box. So one of the things that is, kind of not intuitive is that sometimes you'll be able to come up here and depending on what you're utilizing, and you'll be able to choose don't apply this, and that's mainly from Excel. Excel allows you to remove your particular style like right from here. But in this program, you have to come and select reset style, and then it'll reset the style. So it'll remove that particular style from there. And then you can go ahead and recreate a new style if you want to recreate a new style. All right. And then once we're all done with our particular report, you can go ahead and save it. And exit out. And then we can go to summary reports. And then underneath summary reports, we can locate our report that we created, which is right down here. Number 2, under construction. Run it. And then right here, we can actually start to define our constraint. So in this case, we've already put in Baltimore test area, but if we want to put in another office, we could do that and then execute our query. And then it will run and generate our report. All right, and that's the utilization of the customized report elements there. All right, so that concludes the custom reporting element section. As I said before, it wasn't a fully in-depth, but hopefully it broke the ice a little bit so that now you're able to understand some of the nuances a little bit better, and you should be able to create or start creating your reports. If you have any detailed questions, definitely contact the RMS Center, and we should be able to get you some help on that. I do believe at some point we may be doing a more in-depth tutorial, but I don't have any dates or times on that. So right now, I'd like to open up the floor if we have any questions. I'd like to go ahead and answer those if we have any. All right, I did not see any questions, so I'm going to jump into the next slide, the summary report section. So I'm just starting off a new section. All right, the summary report section, I just went over and showed you that just a little bit, but we'll talk about it a little bit more here. So it's essentially, you click on it in the summary report section at the menu top option where the next to the libraries. A lot of these particular reports are the custom reports, which were in the production area in RMS. Some were created by the RMS Center and some were created by RMS end users. You can go ahead and double click on that report, and then you can run that particular report. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into the RMS schedules tab. So construction projects are notoriously difficult and they're known for encountering delays. So they involve a lot of moving parts, teams, equipment, and materials, socialization of efforts. So if any discipline needs a well thought out schedule, it's construction project management. RMS includes a section to manage the various schedules to control the many phases of construction and managing the contractor's timeline and to minimize delays, and also to make sure to keep the government aligned with whatever the contractor stated that they'll be able to complete. So once a contract is selected, you can go ahead and select the schedules menu from the contract main menu, and that will take you to the options that are outlined. So in this case, as an overview, some contractors use third-party tools to manage their schedules. One such third-party tool is Primavera. So if you're working with a very small schedule, you may be able to manage it, and talk about the contractor may be able to manage it inside of RMS by just the manual entry data option. So we do have a manual entry data option within RMS. Let me just go ahead and show it one more time. That's underneath the contract. We go to contract setup, and then we can utilize submittals and schedules. And then right at the bottom, we have manually enter start finish dates. You can manually enter the dates. If the overall schedule is pretty small, then we can go ahead and choose that. Otherwise, if it's a larger schedule, it's going to require a lot of moving parts, a lot of coordination. You can choose to use a network analysis system, Primavera, or some other third-party scheduling tool. And then we have the constraint down here that basically says the contractor should be entering their data into the daily reports at the same time they're entering it into their particular schedule. So they should always be aligned. And we want to make sure and enforce alignment. So checking this box requires the contractor to use actual start and finish dates from the QC reports on the NAS. Will make sure to align with the contractor that all of their dates have been double checked and entered inside of the QA reporting area as well. Let's bring that down. So the NAS activity schedule is used to keep track of the actual and scheduled start finish dates of contract activities and used to process pay requests. So review of contractor schedule will continue to be outside of RMS using the contractor scheduling software. The activity schedule can be entered manually or by SDEF import. The COR can switch to a manual schedule for Gantt schedule or a NAS schedule, whatever is required by the contract. And then just as a quick note, for NAS activity schedule, it is critical that the actual start and actual activity dates in NAS schedule are the same dates added to actual start and finish dates entered in the QC daily reports. If the dates aren't the same, RMS won't import. And that's just basically that option that I showed you. If that option is checked, then you need to make sure to keep this in mind. Importing SDEF schedule into RMS 3.0 contractor mode is done in the import-export module. After the import of the SDEF schedule in RMS 3.0 contractor mode, the contractor shall ensure there are no variances between the sum of activities and the CLIN amount, and between contract amount and the sum of all activities. The government will go in and they can't approve a NAS schedule in RMS as before. It's a little bit different as showed yesterday. So if you want to see how all of those elements come together, we can review yesterday's schedule. I believe the actual video for that will be out, so you'll be able to review those as well. The manual activity schedule screen is essentially the same screenshot of a manual entry activity. Schedule is on the left there, so you can see with a manual schedule, the contractor will manually enter pay activities under finances, pay activity submodule, and enter scheduled start and finish dates under schedules activity schedule, and enter the actual start and finish dates in the QC daily reports. By using the blue tiles along the top of the data grid, you can quickly view the activities and all activities not started, in progress, not finished, and finished. So you can go ahead and check that out. We do have a demo available for that. So if you download the slide, you can go ahead and click on the demo. That takes you to the YouTube video, and it'll show you exactly how to run through that. I'll go ahead and go to the navigation screen just really quick. When we're looking at all these particular pieces and how everything is geared and running together, we can see our pay activity section here. We can see our CLINs, our contractors, and our features, which are aligned there. And then for each one of our particular elements, but for the most part, you can see that the schedule start and schedule finish date fields are editable within there, and you can basically edit those particular fields. The milestone schedule at the top was taken out. So our elements used to be under here for the pay activities, but now we're under schedules, and we'll go to the activity schedule. And underneath activity schedule, you'll go ahead and see the actual elements for entering your scheduled start dates or your scheduled finish dates there as well, and you can do the manual entries for those. All right, so that just to bring you up to the speed that the milestone schedule was taken out of the administration module and moved to the schedules module as well. The milestone schedule is simply a timeline that uses milestones to divide a project schedule into major phases. Due to its simplicity, it's used when project managers or sponsors need to share an overview of the project schedule and stakeholders or team members without going over every single detail. The milestones provide a way to more accurately estimate the time it will take to complete your overall project by marking important dates and events, making them essential for precise project planning and scheduling. So because of their versatility, they're an important element of project documents such as the project schedule and the project plan. So milestone tasks can be linked as well. That is when the phase of one milestone cannot begin until the completion of the phase before it. So those are the elements that we can take a look at as well. So let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. And that's our overall milestone schedule here. Within our milestone schedule, we can go ahead and check in. We have all of our milestones listed at the top in these blue grouping tiles. So if we click on that, it'll group the tiles. We just want to see the construction milestones or the post-construction, or if we want to see our system milestones, we can go through and do that. And then editing a particular milestone will bring you into the milestone overall and allow you to either create that particular milestone's schedule event. So either manually enter date or other milestone event or activity finish date, and then you can list how you want to create that particular milestone's event and how you want that milestone's event to affect this particular milestone. All right, overall, the project schedule, being a management control tool, may be applied to many aspects of work by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The project schedules can be utilized by management for in-house analysis as well, such as engineering and design and life cycle project management. For example, you can use it in forecasting annual office budgets by analyzing projected placement from early finish and late finish, sorts of cost data if you're trying to do costing for those particular activities. In the planning phase, schedule analysis can be used to set construction durations prior to advertisement, or maybe used in running scenarios for acquisition selection as well. That's usually out of our particular scope, but those are elements that you can utilize within RMS to pull the data out and then give it to the person who is actually doing the leadership or the efforts for acquisition. We also have what's called an S-curve feature, which refers to our chart that is used to describe and visualize and predict the performance of a project or business over time. More specifically, it is a logistic curve that plots out the progress of a variable by relating it to another variable over time. So our S-curves are used there, and different S-curve options are available to you as well. And that is under our placement schedule. And if we pull up our placement schedule, we can go ahead and check and see we have our placement based on, and then we can see our placement, our projected earnings based on a manual entered. We also have other elements that are selectable. If we select a particular option, we'll also notice that other options either turn off or turn on based on the options that we select. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. Sometimes the user might go into these screens and they'll select something and then something else disappears and then they're wondering where did it go. Usually it's because that particular option controlled the end result of some other option. So just keep that in mind as well. Next is the placement schedule. So this is the monthly placement tab, is where you can compare actual placement with the scheduled placement. And then we have another tab, which is our actual versus project placement tab. That allows you to set up projected schedule placement. You can copy schedule placement to projected schedule placement, or just manually add percentages there as well. And then our last tab is our actual versus baseline tab, which allows you to set up original projected placement and mid-year projected placement as well. We do have demos for each one of those YouTube videos that are available, so you guys can check those. I'll just go ahead and jump onto the screens really quickly. But for more in-depth, we do have videos that were already done. So for a more in-depth view, you guys can take a look at those. The monthly placement tab is where we can go in, change each one of our elements based on percentage markers. We have our actual versus projected placement. And we can edit that percentage as well. And then our actual versus baseline, we can go through and set up the original projected placement and mid-year projected placement to see what they will show us, what type of insights they'll give us comparing those. So next up we have is a definable feature of work is any task which is separate and distinct from other tasks, has separate control requirements, or is identified by different trades or disciplines. So when we're looking at definable features of work, or DFOWs, are identified in the contractor's QC plan, and the contractor will perform control activities for each definable feature of work, i.e. preparatory, initial, and special follow-up inspections and QC tests. So RMS calculates the start date and finish date for each definable feature of work by finding the first activity start date and last activity finish date linked to that definable feature of work. The preparatory inspection and initial inspection schedule and actual dates are manually entered by the contractor here on this definable feature of work, and lets the QA know of upcoming preparatory or initial inspection meetings. So this is a rolled up feature. Schedule makes an excellent schedule for monitoring the progress of a particular contract. All right, we've reached the end of that particular section, so we can open it up for questions. I saw some questions flying through, but we'll open the floor up now if you have any other further questions. I'm not hearing any questions, so we'll go ahead and move forward. All right, we're starting a new section, contract closeout. A contract closeout occurs when a contract has met all of the terms of contract and all administrative actions have been completed. All disputes settled and final payments have been made. So this includes those administrative actions that are contractually required, such as proper security, patents, royalties, timely and proper contract closeout. All of these ensures that all invoices are paid, reduces the burden on the overall industry, and then mitigates risk to losing funds to interest payments, ensures agencies remain compliant with the Prompt Payment Act, de-obligates remaining funds, and creates archives contract within accordance to the FAR 4.805. So RMS allows contract management to be done within our particular contract closeout screen. So once a contract is selected, select closeout menu from the contract main menu, and that will take you to the closeout options that are available. And the closeout activities in RMS includes the following: the real property screens, transfer DD form 1354, input screens and reports, requisitions, that's our DD form 1149, the CPARs, contractor performance evaluation report, DD form 2626, and then also our warranty inspection screens and reports, rounding out everything. So the first screen we'll take a look at is our real property screen. So essentially when you go in and you select closeout and then you edit or choose real property, you'll be able to select this particular screen. And for military construction contracts, real property is required to be documented by use of the DD form 1354. This form is used to transfer a facility or part of a facility to the using service prior to or on partial or complete occupancy. So contractor can now create the real property items and submit them for government acceptance. And that's on the real property screen as well. So we can add a real property by go ahead and choosing the add button, design services construction, which we'll get to later. That's the DDC at the end. We'll talk about that one a little bit more in depth. But when you go through and you add your real property, this form allows you to use the real property and add all the elements available to you. Real property consists of land and capital improvements to the land. Real property is anything attached to the land, buildings, parking lots, electrical systems, etc. So the contractor can add in real property items. All contractor added real property items must be accepted by the Corps for use on DD 1354. And for each real property item, the Corps needs to determine if the RP item will be included in DDC in the final DD 1354 cost calculation. So if you're talking about the DDC, the design services during construction and assistance to construction managers. So when an engineering project transitions from final design to bid and construction, the designer's role shifts onto assistance during actual implementation of the design. So usually if you're checking that particular box, that's what you're implying. We next have our DD form 1354 button that can be clicked on. That's placed in service date on the 1354 is same date as the actual BOD date. The transfer document milestone date is the same date as actual BOD date, and then you can fill out the 3 tabs before creating the DD Form 1354. So when you're looking at each one of the tabs, header, real property, deficiencies, and remarks, you can go through and start to fill those out as well. And that DDC is designed during construction. The real property accountability officer, when we're going over each one of these items, so we're looking at the DD form can be with known deficiencies from the QA/QC deficiency listing, and then you coordinate with the RPAO prior to submission. So the coordination with the real property accountability officer, the real property accountability officer will maintain the records for all buildings, structures, utilities, and land under the control of the commander, regardless of the type of ownership, and such other records as may be necessary to account for USA's real property or to support any type of real-time entries. So you still need to coordinate with the RPAO prior to submission. We can't give you all the rules for that, so you'll definitely need to talk with your contract owner in order to basically get the proper follow-up information that you'll need to discuss and coordinate with that RPAO. One thing, if you don't know who your RPAO is, usually whoever's appointed in HR should be able to direct you to your RPAO. So I think that usually comes up a lot, the question, but for the most part, if you don't know who that is, HR should be able to direct you to that as well. The DD Form 1354, you can enter the most up-to-date costs for the planning and design costs, and you can also enter the S&A and DDC and equipment costs as well. The DDC costs can now be added to the DD 1354. You can also coordinate with budget personnel for these values as well. I just got some side information about the RPO as well. RPO is at the installation, not part of USACE. So overall, when you're doing your coordination, you have to reach out outside of USACE most likely. All right, the DD Form 1354 report is generated from inside the transfers DD Form 1354 submodule by clicking the DD 1354 icon at the top, or the DD 1354 can be printed using Contract Reports Closeout. You can open the contract and click on Contract Reports in order to set that up. Under Closeout, you can click on the DD Form 1354 report, then select the DD Form 1354 file, and then you can click on Review, on Preview. And that brings us to the requisition DD 1149, Transfer Property, and that is that property that changes hands during the construction process. So examples would include the government furnished property, or GFPs, the contractor would install or consume during the contract performance. So it would be, if you think about it, it would include spare parts and supplies that are furnished by the contractor as part of the contract requirements as well, but not actually installed. So it could also include equipment or materials that were deleted as part of the contract modification and that were beneficial for the government to retain rather than get some minimum token credit for the deletion. So, kind of like that, you participated kind of a thing. When you open up the requisition DD 1149 view, the data grid displays all the DD 1149s previously entered into the system. So the DD Form 1149 is used to document the transfer of property to the customer and should include transfers to and from the contractor and the Corps of Engineers. So this transfer may take place in more than one stage. If so, you'll do one DD Form 1149 for each transfer. So the thing to keep in mind here is that when you're doing your DD 1149s, you might have multiples that you might have to use, and you'll definitely need to do them for each stage of a transfer if you did not receive the final transfer completed. So just keep that in mind as well. When you get to the header section, you can fill out the header portion of the transfer, shipping information, and appropriations data. By just clicking on the Transfer Property tab, you can fill out each item transferred as well. Once the contractor enters transfer property on RMS3 contractor mode, the DD 1149 should be prepared by the government. The DD 1149 form should be submitted along with the installed property report with the interim DD Form 1354. This particular data creates an audit trail of where each piece of transferred property was delivered. And here's the thing: we can't track what we don't have a record of. So the audit trail is very important. And in a new system which we're coming up with, which is being basically pushed upon us in a security first environment. We have to make sure that we have all the details in order to perform proper audit tracking. And in order to do that, we definitely need each person to make sure that they're entering the proper data elements. Now, we also have CPARS evaluations as well. That's the Contractor Performance Assessment Report. So performance evaluations contain both government and contractor comments to provide a balanced view of performance, so allowing source selection officials to look beyond contractor references. So past performance information is relevant information for future source selection purposes regarding a contractor's actions under previously awarded contracts or orders. So it's very important if the user is closing out the contract that they go ahead and fill out all the pertinent information to help within selecting that particular contractor again for a new job or a new award. So your input will aid in the proper selection of the best candidate for the job. CPAR evaluation is for the contractor past performance report, which allows you to enter those 6 sections at the top, 6 tabs that are addressed: their contractor name, address, contract information, miscellaneous information, small business utilization, ratings, and then the assessor. And then you can export it to CPARS. Essentially, your export will be a text file that will allow you to hand jam that particular information. Okay, yeah. One of the elements that have come up, see here, one of the elements that have come up in the past regarding this, one of the elements that have come up in the past is that, hey, how come you don't have a proper import export option for CPARS that allows you to include that particular option and allow the data to be transferred seamlessly into CPARS? And actually, we did have an import export module, but that was decommissioned back in 2014. Essentially, if you want to see that particular information is on our website, but this is all the tasking information here for CPARS. So if you want to see where that information is held, you can go ahead and take a look at our website. That includes all that information. But in essence, we did have an import. That import was decommissioned due to some changes within Big Army. So there might be another import, or I should say another interface coming. We don't know. We'll have to wait and double check. So if a user asks you regarding that, that's our current answer at this particular point in time. And approximately 4 months and 9 months after transfer, the USA's construction agent and customer will perform joint inspections to identify defects and plan corrective actions. The contractor should be represented at these warranty inspections in order to attain an understanding of the problems and proposed solutions. It is essential that USA's maintain customer support through project transfer and the respective warranty period. As a result, the specific details of the transfer and warranty procedures can be tracked in RMS Warranty Facilities module. So the Warranty Facilities module allows you to be able to track those particular deficiencies provided to the field office from the customer for up to 12 months after beneficial occupancy. The field office confirms that the deficiency is indeed a warranty item. Individual warranty items cannot be added in the warranty tracking module. Only the 4-month and 9-month inspection can be added. You can click on add and add warranty title, warranty start date, and warranty end date as well. You can click on the 4-month inspection required button and start entering warranty items from the 4-month warranty inspection period, or you can click on the 9-month inspection required button and start entering warranty items from the 9th month warranty inspection. Either the government or the contractor can add warranty items. Once a new warranty item is entered on one side, it will show up in real time on the other side. So depending on whichever one enters it, it'll show up on the other side as well. Prior to the notification system being added, an email will be sent notifying any new warranty item that is currently in the system. If you have a warranty item that is longer than 9 months, enter the warranty and the date in the provided edit field as well. And I hear someone asking a question. We're actually at the ending period for the question answer period, but I was just going to show the forms real quick. So we're talking about closeout. We're talking about each one of these individual items. So our property section. So we can go in and check our closeout value section here. each one of our elements are entered into our row property. We also have our transfer DD form 1354. We can go in and edit or add a new 1354. Each one of these elements lists can be added. We can enter the property names there, our deficiency items, and then any remarks that we may have. We then have our requisition DD 1149 as well, so we can go through. All right, requisition DD 1149, and then we have our CPAR evaluation form, which allows us to go through and enter and track our contractor performance assessment reports. Each one of those elements can give our contractor our ratings, and then our comments, provide those comments that'll be necessary for the next phase of award. If they're being awarded something else, they can go back here and check these out in PPRUS. And then our warranty tracking as well. We have our 3 tabs at the top, and then each one of those tabs allows us to do a particular entry. We have our warranty periods listed. We have our warranty items on each one. And then we have our warranty inspection, the 4-month inspection and our 9th-month inspection. And if you have a longer period than that, you can go ahead and enter the date. And that concludes that particular section. Okay, and we can open up the floor for any questions regarding the closeout module area. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So how to filter selection views in RMS, tips and tricks to make using and navigating RMS easier. The overall goal is to filter the list to allow you to find the information faster. If you are able to cull the selection list down to a manageable number, the speed at which you can verify the data will allow you to find your data much faster and essentially allow you to help those users that need help much faster as well. So one of the things we want to take a look at is our overall structure. We have several different pieces which will allow you to get to your data as fast as possible. You can click on favorites or recent contracts, and that will open the contracts as well. Always add contracts that are worked on the most to your favorite section. You can select contract stage, filter icon, and select contracts that are active and construction complete, final payment made, etc. Use the export button to navigate and generate data through the data grid, and essentially it almost functions just like Excel when you export those particular items. You can export the data grids to Excel or to PDF, and then you can also use the search box instantly to filter those particular items. So essentially, when we're looking at our overall screen, we'll see our top navigation view up here, but we also have our favorite section here. We have our elements on the side here that we can choose from. We have our most recent contracts that we were in right here. And then if we want to go ahead and search for a particular contract, we can start typing in the contract in here as well. And then it'll filter our contract down. We can also do sortings and groupings of data within RMS. We can click on the report menu button, and all of the records in the data grid will be displayed and visible, but will be displayed by each group in ascending order. The default sort is ascending, but the user can change to descending. So definition of a data grid is a list populated with selectable items. So essentially, when you come up on a user or when you come up on an element, we can go through and we can say, okay, show me and group by the contract stage. And when you do that, it's going to group it by the contract stage. And then you can expand or collapse the view as needed. If you want to get rid of that grouping, you can go ahead and click on X to exit. If you want to stack views, you can go ahead and stack a view by dragging in one element and then dragging in another element, and then now stack your groups. So now you have your groups by office, and then inside that office, you have your groups by contract stage. And so that will give you the ability to be able to filter your data down as low as possible. The general filtering of data within RMS allows you to filter that particular data by clicking on the filter icon, which is found in the data grid. You can add details on how to show a particular row. So if it's less than, if it's greater than, if it's like something, you add that particular filter, you click on apply filter, and your particular argument or your string that you want to utilize, and then it will filter your data. This type of filtering will work on any data grid. To clear the filter, click on the filtering tool and then clear the filter. So you can go ahead and do that once again. I'll just keep on using the main grid. This works on all the other grids as well, but it's this little filtering icon right there. We can click on that, and then we can go ahead and choose whether it's equal to, starts with, or if it already has values, we can select a particular value. It'll automatically start to filter by that particular value as well. And let's say we've added a particular filter, and that filter is added. And now we want to get rid of that filter. We can do clear filter, and now the filter is cleared. All right, and standard using the search box on the data grid. We've been looking at this several times already, but the search box is definitely a feature that we shouldn't sleep on. If we're looking for a particular element, we can type in any type of information, either in the middle, the end, the beginning, and it will try to filter that particular data for us as well. Now, the search box itself does not work on date fields, and we can bring that up real quick here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and exit out. That way I have everything reset. And let's go back into 1660. And let's go to RFIs. All right, an RFI has a date field. I stand corrected. It does work on date fields. Okay, so our developers actually made it work on date fields now. So we can get it working on date fields. Yeah, we updated. All right, so that was updated. It was updated within one of our recent patches. We just need to update the slides and make sure to keep that up to date. So make sure to update the slides, but it is working on date fields now, so you don't have to worry about that. So we'll update this slide to reflect that later. So one last thing we will touch on are the elements within the overall filter of the date. So if we want to go ahead and say we want to do a date between, we can say we want one greater than or less than. So in this case, we'll say greater than and then let's say less than. And filter. All right, so that'll get us our between dates, so we can measure and select dates that are between a particular value. So in this case, anything between 3.1 to 4.1, go ahead and filter it out for me. And that pretty much covers all of our filter data. We can clear this filter, and then we're good to go. All right, and we can open up the floor for any questions at this time. All right, I'm not hearing any questions. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to my management team, and they can go ahead and close this out. We've reached the ending of the presentation. Thank you guys for joining us and listening in. And I'd like to turn it over to our management team.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for attending.